is Black Market Leadership, the underground resource for disruptors and status quo breakers.
Isaac Morehouse, welcome, sir. How are you?
Doing great. Love the name Black Market Leadership.
Thank you.
It's great marketing.
Tell you what, I can't believe this, but we got it trademarked. Don't ask me how, but it happened. So
wow. Yeah, I don't envy going through the process. But I guess you came out the other side. So
I tell you what, you are something. Wow. I counted 9 books, 44 articles. You've interviewed Michael Mouse a couple of times, and you've been on Tucker, I think 4 times. Quite a resume, my friend.
Yeah, honestly, it's it all started from daily blogging, like giving myself a friend of mine actually gave me a challenge to blog every day. And I was like, all right, I'll blog every day for 6 months. And I'm telling you, I'm the biggest fan of giving yourself a daily blogging challenge because there's no excuse. It's the easiest thing ever to do. I mean, you just publish a blog every day for 30 days. Easy in terms of any excuse you come up with is like your own made up garbage, right? Because you can do it. You can do it on your phone while you're sitting on the toilet if you have to. You can post a haiku. It doesn't matter. Like if you just say it doesn't matter what it is, you got to post every day for 30 days or ideally even longer. But that changed everything for me. I just became a creative machine then and just never stopped writing. I've written, I don't know, close to 3,000, blog posts at various places and turned several of those into books and ended up spinning up a podcast. And to be honest, my first company was literally born out of that blogging challenge. It like unleashed a creative monster. So,
I was on LinkedIn, and this is why I contacted you. I read this great article. It was called "Why College Degrees Are Working Against Many Job Seekers." I'm like, oh my God, I loved it. So I looked you up, and I'm like, I know that face. And then I went on YouTube and I looked you up. I'm like, oh, Tucker, I remember you talking about it's college dead. You don't need a college degree. So I was like, oh, we got to talk to you. The one thing that we really focus on in Black Market Leadership is I love talking to disruptors and people who are status quo breakers. And your message that, in essence, college is dead. You don't have to have a professional degree. I totally concur. So I think my first question to you is, and I'm really interested in your background. Tell me about your background. What was the catalyst for you to put these provocative ideas out there?
Yeah, it's funny. They are provocative only because no one has questioning the status quo is so hard. It's hard for us. We have such a strong cognitive bias towards whatever the status quo is in whatever area. So anything that's different sounds provocative, but when you actually sit back and compare, you tell me which sounds more radical. Which sounds more provocative? Saying, hey, kid, you have no idea what you like, what you're good at, what you want to do, what the real world's like. You've never worked out there in the market in your whole life. How about you go sit inside classrooms for 4 years, go 5 to 6 figures into debt, being taught things that are utterly uninteresting to you from people who are terrified of the market and have never worked in it in their whole lives, and then come out on the other end and you'll be closer to a career versus, hey, why don't you go shadow somebody, work for free or for cheap, apprentice, learn, see if you like it, learn on the job. If you don't like it, try something else. Do that for a couple of years until you have a really good idea what kind of skills you want to hone and develop and what you want to do with your life. Like, which one sounds right? One of them you get paid, by the way. The other one you're going, like, the fact that it's radical to say this is just a crazy testament to how strong the status quo bias is. But that was not the question you asked. You asked about my background, right? Like how did I come to this kind of idea that college is dead? And I 100% believe that. I'm willing to explain and back that up later if you want, because people think that I'm just being provocative. But so I grew up homeschooled, and so had a lot of independence from a young age. And in addition to being a homeschool, my dad was in a car accident when I was 3, and he survived, but he needs 24-hour care. And so my mom is like taking care of him, raising us. So we had to kind of help take care of him. So we had to have a lot of independence, right? We had a lot of household chores and responsibilities from a young age, and kind of always worked. I always had jobs earning money from a very young age, doing, delivering paper and doing, whatever, lawn service and all kinds of stuff. And so I, at my sophomore year of high school, I wanted to play on a better basketball team than the homeschool basketball team. So I went to this private school that a bunch of my friends had gone to. And I remember being like, yeah, okay, it was fun and interesting, but it was like really frustrating that I couldn't work as much as I wanted. I couldn't earn money as much as I wanted to because I had to be in the same, everyone's on the exact same schedule, 50-minute classes, the bell goes off. Doesn't matter. Some people didn't learn anything. Some people were way ahead of the class. It didn't matter. You're all treated like equal units, just sort of move down this conveyor belt. And I'm like, it was like chafing at me. I liked, I had a fun time and I played sports and everything and, enjoyed it. But it was like, it just felt like such a waste. Everybody being treated like everyone is just a uniform widget to be moved down a conveyor belt. Right. And it's like, well, in what way? I mean, people are just so radically different and the outcomes are going to be different or what we want to do with our life. So I chafed at that. So I decided to drop out after a year and go to, I did community college. I took like my classes, a couple days a week, and then I worked like 3-4 days a week. And that was actually a lot more enjoyable because I had more control over my schedule and I could just sort of like pick whatever classes sounded interesting. And so I would go there, a couple days a week. And I was like, when I first started going to community college, I was 15. I couldn't even drive there. I had to wait for my mom to pick me up from college. But that's something that a lot of homeschoolers will do during high school. They'll take classes at community college to sort of get credits. And I just kind of was like, well, I guess I got to go to college because everybody says you'll be a loser. You'll like sleep on a park bench if you don't go to college, And I never really knew why. No one explained the causal chain there of like, what about it will turn you from someone who's destined to be an unemployed loser to someone who is really, really valuable? What are they doing in college that's going to make that happen? No one ever really explained that. And I was like, I didn't get it, but it seemed so pervasive that I just assumed, well, I guess it must be true. I guess I have to go to college, right? And so I transferred. I went to a 4-year university, and I was doing the same thing. I was living off campus with actually a house that I had bought and was renting out and trying to make money on that. And I was working about 3 days a week, as many hours as I could. And I was cramming like 18 credit hours into 2 days a week and just kind of going and going to classes. And I really enjoy like philosophy, economics. Like I'm kind of a nerdy type of a dude. I'll stay up till 2 a.m, talking about the nature of existence or whatever. So I enjoyed some of the classes, but the thing was nobody wanted to be there. The professors didn't want to be there. The students didn't want to be there. Nobody seemed happy, with rare exception. And in fact, when class is canceled, what happens? Everyone's happy.
Yes, they are.
And so I thought, well, I think I heard someone else say this and it made me start thinking about it. I don't remember who, but what other good do you pay for up front and then you're happy when it's not delivered? And I thought, well, okay, what's going on here? People actually don't want what they're purchasing. And I thought, well, no. They're not purchasing the education. They're not purchasing the lectures. That's not what people are paying for. And that realization was really big for me. It was like, oh, I get it. That's actually a cost. That's an additional cost. What do they really want? They really want the piece of paper. Mm-hmm. They want the piece of paper. Now, they may enjoy the social environment. They may enjoy some of the classes. They may enjoy some of those other things might be beneficial to some people, but they're not what they're buying. Because if that was what people really wanted, why wouldn't people constantly be just moving to college towns, getting a place, to rent, and then just going and sitting in on classes and enjoying the social life without ever registering or paying tuition? Because you can do that. No one's going to kick you out of a class if you walk in without being registered. I've never seen professors check who's officially a registered. You could literally live the entire college life, everything except for the actual credits and the paper at the end, for free. Mm-hmm. No one does. They don't even need to try to enforce it because it's so rare. And I thought, well, the reason they do is because they don't care. All that other stuff is just window dressing. They just want that official stamped piece of paper. And so that's kind of like the signaling theory of education, right? Which is what I stumbled upon. I didn't know the name at the time. So then I really started to think on that. And it really frustrated me because I'm like, I'm wasting. I was learning so much on the job at working for a small business owner while I'm paying my way through school, turning around, dumping all this money into college. These just ridiculous classes, like 90% of them were utterly ridiculous and worthless. There's a few good ones here and there, a couple good professors here and there. But that's like, you're lucky if you get that, right? At least at a generic state school where I went, it was just sort of like a big waste. So I thought, well, do I really need this signal? Like, if I want this piece of paper, how valuable really is it? Is it worth 4 years of people's lives and 10, 20, 50, 60, $100,000? Is it worth that much? What does it actually get you versus not having it? And so I remember when I went on the job market, I listed my degree on my resume and my GPA. No one ever asked to verify that it was real, by the way. They just assumed, okay, cool, whatever. I'm sure, and every job posting said degree required. And so I assumed, well, they must mean it, right? Degree required. I guess I have to have a degree. It's a good thing I have one. No one asked about it. No one really cared. And after my first job, after I got hired at my first job, I noticed something. If I would have removed that entirely from my resume and I replaced it with what I did at that first job, it worked just as well. In fact, it worked better. Like once you've already had a job, it's like once you have a college degree, no one cares about your high school diploma, right? It's like people that like, here's my degree, here's my diploma. We don't care. You have a degree, so we just assume you did high school. Okay, you had a real job, so we just assume you did college or whatever, right? And it was like, it's like, that's only valuable if it's literally the highest achievement you've ever made. If the most interesting thing about you is your degree, then like that's what people, it will matter to them. But I thought, well, that's a pretty lame, like I remember looking around, and then I'll stop. I'm telling this too much of a backstory, but I'm just giving you the foundation for where this idea came from. It would take another 10 years, by the way, after I graduated college, before I actually started. It was almost 12 years before I actually started Praxis, a college alternative company, but through a lot of just observation and other things. But I had an epiphany sitting in the classroom looking around, and all these kids were like all hungover and just being just goofy college kids. And I thought, all I'm really paying for is a piece of paper that tells the world I'm no worse than anyone else here, because they all are buying the same piece of paper. And I'm like, that is a very weak signal. It's basically like, hey, you know, the average college student you've met, I'm probably not worse than them. That's what this degree screams to the world. And I thought, man, there has to be a way to signal my value to companies that is worth a stronger, better signal than this college degree. And that was kind of my quest, was to figure that out. And I went a different direction career-wise for a while, but I kept this in the back of my mind until finally everything kind of came together and I had this idea for Praxis. So there's my rambly backstory.
I love that. You know, one of the things that I've done in my career is I do behavioral profiling, and I literally help put the right person in the right role, ensuring it's the right person. And one thing I have, there's a term that I think I made it up. I'm sure it's been out there many times. It's called masking. And I find that people, when they don't have a certain level of competency, their behaviors, they overcompensate with them. And you'll find people who maybe don't know the competency very well, that the force of personality comes out, and it's almost they're overcompensating. I wonder, you mentioned signaling. I wonder if that's an element of, you know, going to college. It's almost like a shortcut. If I go here, I'm a success, meaning I don't have to work for it.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, you see this, I almost feel like you see this even more in parents than in kids, because in the social world, and I'm a parent, I understand this stuff is not easy. You feel these pressures. You know, you're at the cocktail party talking to all your friends. You're talking to the neighborhood moms or dads. Oh, how's Junior? What are they up to? If you say, oh, they're at Florida State. Oh, they're in college. Or, oh, they just graduated college. What will everybody say? They'll immediately say, wow, good for them. And they're basically saying to you, by telling them that one piece of information, in college or graduated college, they will reply with something that basically means you are a good parent. You succeeded, right? If you say anything other than that for someone who's beyond high school age, oh, they're not going to go to college. Oh, they're doing this instead. You will get something that is a thinly veiled way of saying, oh, I'm a little concerned. Oh, I'm sorry for you, right? They'll say something like, oh, well, you know, everybody has a different path or something. And it will be this, and you will feel like you failed as a parent. Now, this is true no matter what else is true of that kid. And this is what blew me away, because I've talked to hundreds, probably thousands of parents. And I have encountered literally a child who is unemployed, has been out of college for 2 years, never had a job, utterly depressed, living at home, making nothing out of their life and suffering. And another child who decided not to go to college, is making $60,000 a year as a 20-year-old, running a small business, and very fulfilled, has a girlfriend, is living on their own in a new city, is running a podcast. And guess what? The parent says to me, I'm really concerned about my 20-year-old because he just doesn't want to go to college. And I wish he was more like his sister. She got great grades and got a scholarship. And the sister is living at home, unemployed and literally depressed. But in the parent's mind, they have so fused the idea of being a successful parent with getting my kid through college that they can't separate it. They can't even see what's in front of them, that the kid, it's like if you tell people, oh, I'm in college. Oh, great. They're like, good for you. You have succeeded. You could be an alcoholic who's chronically depressed and can't make any friends. But if you're in college, people will tell you, good job. If you're not in college, no matter what you're doing, they're going to be like, oh, so you decided not to go to college, huh? Right? So like, that's really, really strong. And I think that weighs on kids as well. So they use it as that shortcut because, again, you don't always have the time in these conversations to explain to people about everything in your life. And they use that college as a proxy for success. You got your kid out of the house into the world. Good for you. You must be proud. And that is really, I think, the heart of that is the only thing that is keeping college alive, is that social pressure right there.
Yeah. I totally believe in the law of law of supply demand. And for some reason, to me, it feels like college or higher education, it's almost like a paradox because, thank God in the West, we put a huge premium on knowledge, on information, on thinking. And yet you could go to college, you can go in debt, and you could leave and just be completely lost. In fact, I think you could probably make the case, depending on the degree, you could leave, you could be regressed mentally, psychologically. It's funny, you mentioned you like philosophy, and I saw that you and I have some similar connections. I'm a big fan of Ayn Rand, was one of my favorite authors.
Yeah.
And when I got out of the Army in 2005, I spent a lot of money on some Ayn Rand Institute courses. One was called The Philosophy of Education. And something hit me when I was listening to this. It was like, education is meant as a tool to help you live and succeed. It's a tool. You just don't get it and your success. It's a tool in a big toolbox. I just don't think I don't think people have that. I think you're right. It's almost like the end state. You go to college, boom, I'm a success. Well, then life hits you. How are you going to make your money? What are you going to do?
It's funny, when I first launched Praxis, I would get criticism from professors primarily. Oh, what are you trying to do? You're trying to make it like it's all about just getting a job or something. And you're just, you're forgetting the well-rounded, the liberal arts and whatever. And I'm like, okay, first of all, I am the one who's being honest and saying, here's what this program does for you. We help you identify what kind of roles might be a good fit, and we help you get your first job. That is what we are selling. College, they pretend that they're selling everything, right? Oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And they'll just change the message all the time. And it's like, if they were honest, they would say, we're selling you a piece of paper that looks good on your resume, right? That's it. All the other stuff, we're just hoops we're making you jump through, right? But I think what is missed is when you attach, because I'm a huge fan of like learning and philosophy and perpetual, self-betterment and self-driven education. People who have gone through the Praxis program, they're always like spontaneously organizing book reading clubs, philosophy discussion nights. Like there's all kinds of like really in-depth stuff, because it's like sort of Maslow's hierarchy, right? If you're thinking, I just need a job, I'm just panic, I need a job because I'm about to move out of the house and I need something to do with my life. Once you kind of know, hey, I have a path that's going to help me, I'm going to take care of that. That's good to go. Now you're kind of free to be like, all right, I want to really like get in depth and understand this, or I want to learn this, or maybe your job itself leads you down a path where it makes you start to be curious about certain things in parts of the world you want to learn about. So, but I think separating the classroom or the idea of learning from the magical job ticket, separating the classroom from the credential is so crucial. And I had this realization. I've spoken over the years at a lot of seminars, summer seminars on things like economics and political philosophy. And these are like week-long intense things where you get like 5 or 6 professors together who are presenting, hour-long lectures back to back all day. And there's basically like lunch and some free time in between. And you're getting high school and college students who are coming. Sometimes they're paying to come. They're certainly paying for the travel. They're coming voluntarily to spend an entire week doing nothing but learning and reading and having discussion groups with strangers and professors about philosophy, economics. You'll get hundreds of them to come, and the quality of the discussion is amazing. The quality, you're giving a lecture and the Q&A, the students are so engaged. And then I compared that to, I would go and do a guest lecture at a college class that a buddy of mine was teaching. And it's like, everyone in the room, if you asked an alien from another planet, what do you think you're observing here? They would say this is a prison. It's got to be, because everyone in there looks like horrible. And I'd be giving them my best stuff. I was cracking jokes. I was trying to, and I get 1 or 2 people to engage out of a classroom of 30 or 40, versus those summer seminars where 98% of the people are dialed in and engaged. And the difference is, if we would have taken that seminar had no college credit of any kind. If we would have taken that seminar and said, at the end of it, everyone gets a certificate that's going to make you be able to get a job, guess what would happen? It would be flooded with people who didn't give a shit about the ideas. And the quality would go down. It would be horrible. So I always tell my professor friends, hey, I'm your greatest ally here. No, who likes to teach to a room full of students that don't want to be there and that are rolling their eyes and texting? That feels horrible. Nothing feels worse than an audience that doesn't want to hear you talk, and you have to talk to them every single day. I'm trying to separate the classroom from the credential. I'm trying to separate the job. Hey, you need a signal that tells employers you're hireable. I will help you build that, right? Come to Praxis. We'll help you build a personal portfolio. We'll get you some work experience. We'll help you become valuable and learn how to show that value so you can get a job. Separate that out from, hey, you want to learn about Aristotle? Go join this class, right? So now the kids in the class are the ones who really want to learn about Aristotle. They're not just there suffering through Aristotle lectures so they can get some magical ticket to a job. Like, to me, that's what makes the learning environment healthier. If you stop trying to use it as okay, we'll give you this job ticket if you just sit through this class over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. To me, like I said, the education has to have practical value. You probably don't know this, but I've been teaching American military history at Scottsdale Community College for like 10 years now. And the one thing that I pride myself, I have people say this is their favorite course, because I bring philosophy, practical ideas to explain strategy. We talk about Clausewitz. It's about emotion. Forget the science. Who cares if your enemy has machine guns? Charge it. That's what they feel. And people are like, holy shit, really? Like, yeah, that's what people feel. Now, where do you see this in your life? And people start making the connection. That's where the light bulbs come on. It's connections. It's about real life. It is not just memorize this date, memorize this name, just checking the box. And I watched one of your testimonials on YouTube about Praxis when you're, when you're graduates. Boy, just great things. It sounds like a practical education. Can you tell us about Praxis?
Yeah. So, it was around 2013. The job I had at the time was I had spent almost a decade working with a lot of students on various high school students, college students, all kinds of different programs, and in part helping them if they wanted to go into specific types of careers in like policy or think tanks, things like that. I was running fellowship programs. So anyway, I'd been with college students a ton, and hearing them constantly talk about when they graduate, they couldn't get any jobs. No one was hiring. This was like around, like starting after the 2008 crash for several years there. It was like, that was the refrain. Oh, it's such a tough job market. No one wants to hire. Well, so I had switched into a job where I was doing fundraising for a nonprofit. So I'm flying all over, meeting with very wealthy individuals, like self-made millionaires, billionaires. A lot of them were, people who had built up businesses. And I always ask them all about their companies. How did it grow? What's your biggest constraint to growth? And they would always say the biggest constraint to growth was people. Can't find enough good people. Just too hard to find good talent. And I thought every business owner is saying, they would always say stuff like, look, I'm always hiring, even if we don't have job postings. If I find good people, I'll hire them. And then I see young people saying, no one's hiring. No one wants to hire me. I've come out of college with this degree. And then they would often go and be like, well, I guess I got to go get a master's degree because that's the only way I can defer paying my student debt back. Like, I don't have anything I'm going to do with this master. I'll just go add to my debt as a way to prevent having to pay it back yet. Which was just crazy to me. So I just had this epiphany, like, okay, what if all these business owners, if I could come to them and say, hey, look, I got all these talented young people here and they, they're raw, they're new, they haven't worked, they haven't had a professional job before, but I have vetted them for like quality, character, just basic stuff and kind of helped them get the basic skills. If I have them work for you, would you be willing to have them apprentice for 6 months and you get to pay them? It's like a real job, but you get to pay them like intern level wages for like entry level work, right? So you kind of, with the knowledge at the end of the 6 months, if they've done well, you'll hire them on. Would you be interested in something like that? And all these employers were like, yeah, absolutely. It sounds great. So then I started asking young people like, hey, what if, why are you really going to college? Well, because I need to get a job. It's like, what if I could help you get the very job you want to get after college right now, and you don't have to pay a dime? And it was surprising. People would be like, every person, yeah, but my parents would kill me. Right? That's what they would say. It'd be like, yeah, but my parents would kill me. The reason I'm going to college is to get a job, let's say as an entry level marketing person at MailChimp or something, right? That'd be a great success if I went to college and got that job afterwards, starting at $50,000 a year. If I would come to them and say, I can get you that job right now for $0, you don't pay any dollar, you don't pay anything, you get the job and you start earning $50,000 a year now. Like, are you interested? And it would be amazing. It was still, my parents will kill me. But I got a few people who were like, I'd be willing to do that. So I was like, all right, I'm doing this. I'm launching this. So I started this company and built up a whole curriculum. And it's morphed and changed over the years as we've learned what's most effective, but it's always had the idea like everything is real world connected. Even though there's elements of philosophy and even some of the, history, economics, some liberal arts are kind of sprinkled in there, but it's very much about the first part. It begins with a boot camp. That's about, all right, let's figure out what you're good at, what you excel at, and what out there in the world people value, and figure out where they overlap. Okay. Because most young people have no idea. They don't know what kind of roles even exist, right? They've been taught like, oh, you can be a astronaut, a cowboy, or a businessman, whatever, right? Like, it's like just a ridiculous list of, so kind of mapping out, okay, what are you good at? What's valued out there in the world? What kind of roles might be a good fit? All right, now let's learn some of the basic skills necessary in those roles and build a portfolio, a body of work. This is why we say, be your own credential. Can you build a body of work, like a personal website or a personal pitch deck or a series of projects that demonstrate your skill in a way that speaks louder than any resume? And then we say, all right, now here's some companies. Let's go and pitch these companies this and get you hired on as an apprentice. So the first 6 months of the program is this boot camp where we're helping you build these skills in a portfolio to show them, and then helping you pitch companies and get you placed. And then the second 6 months, you are working full-time at a company, getting paid. So what you pay in tuition, you more than earn back in what you earn during the 1-year program as an apprentice. So second 6 months, you're apprenticing. And then at the end of the program, 95% of graduates get hired full-time immediately after graduation. Average salary of like 50, 55K. And the average age is like under 20, right? These are kids who are coming right out of high school, no experience, no degree. So that's really what it's all about. It's like learning those skills and then creating tangible ways to demonstrate those skills. So as a concrete example, Kevin, it's like, let's say somebody wanted to come in and work for you as a marketer for Black market leadership. You get an email from one person that says, dear sir, I am applying to work for your company. Attached is my resume. And it's like BA in communications from University of whatever. Somebody else emails you, hey, Kevin, I saw your interview with Isaac, thought it was super, super cool. And then I started going down the rabbit hole and checked out 6 of your other interviews. Absolutely love what you're doing. I noticed that you don't have a super high-tech intro and outro with music. I created one for you. Here it is. You can use it if you want to. Check out some of my other work on my webpage. I've done a couple of test campaigns with MailChimp to try to get people to convert from YouTube to joining a newsletter. Would love to work for you. Let me know. Which one are you more likely to respond to?
Oh my God, the guy's providing value. And in fact,
right?
does this go to your value creation mindset?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And not only would you be more likely to respond to that one, as I painted a picture of what this person sent to you, at no point did your brain start thinking, well, I wonder if they went to college. I want to see their it's suddenly utterly irrelevant.
Yes.
You don't care. And we've had so many employers hire Praxis people who are 18, 19, 20. And then like 3 months on the job, they're like, wait, you don't have a college degree? I didn't even know that, because they didn't even think to ask during the whole hiring process, because what they hit them with wasn't a resume that said, look at my static credentials. It was a pitch. It was, I made something for you. Check it out. Hey, I made this FAQ. I want to work in customer success for you. I went and browsed your website, and I went and browsed your social media, and I saw the top 10 questions people are asking about your product. I created a sample FAQ page. Here it is. Here's an example of me on a customer service call that I recorded as like a mock call, so you can see the way that I interact with customers. Here you go. I would love to work for you, right? Like, it blows away. It's immediately more valuable as a signal than a college degree. And so, and that's to your point. It's all about, if I can boil down absolutely everything for getting your first role, succeeding in your career, there's two things that matter: the ability to create value and the ability to prove it. That's it. So can you create value for people? And figuring out what that is hard when you're young. You're like, I don't know, I'm not very skilled. What can I do that's really good? One of the benefits here is that you don't have to be the best at anything, because there's this thing called comparative advantage. So Kevin, let's say you're managing all your guests and doing all this scheduling stuff, and you're actually really good at it. You're really efficient at managing your schedule, but you have a high opportunity cost. Every hour you spend on scheduling is an hour you could be, whatever. I don't know what you're billing a client $100 an hour for some service, let's say. So that's $100 cost for that hour. If I'm a young person and it takes me 3 hours to do what you can do in 1 in terms of scheduling and logistics, my 3 hours, my opportunity cost might be earning $12 an hour at a fast food joint. So my opportunity cost is $36. So for me, if you're willing to pay me $40 for those 3 hours of work or whatever it is, right? Like, you have saved and I have saved, because you now freed up $100 worth of time, and I now earned $8 more than my next best alternative. So like, you don't have to be an expert when you're young to be able to create value. There's tons of ways you can, but figuring out what can I do that other people will pay for, that they value, and then how can I prove it? Ability to create value, ability to prove it. And the best way to prove it is to do it, to do the job before you get the job, to demonstrate, here you go, I made something. Here's a project, right? You can do that in a couple hours or a couple weeks or a couple months at worst. Teach yourself a very minor new skill, setting up a landing page, let's say, editing videos to make the audio quality better, right? Like, there's things you can do, and they don't cost you anything, by the way, that are infinitely more valuable than a 4-year degree.
What companies have you found that there are certain companies which are much more receptive than others using Praxis?
Yeah, so it definitely, like with any kind of innovation or disruption, it usually starts with the most innovative companies, and that is usually smaller, earlier stage. In our case with Praxis, it tends to be like tech startups.
Mm-hmm.
And so the word startup, into some people's mind, conveys like 2 people in a garage. I'm using it very broadly. I mean companies that are very fast growth, and they kind of have a startup, a growth mentality, and that kind of like hackery mentality. Startups to me include like anything up to like whatever. Spotify would be like a late stage startup, right?
Okay.
And then you kind of move into like maybe big tech. But so startups that are anywhere from 10 to a couple thousand people. Usually it's the sweet spot is between like 20 and 200 people, companies that are high growth, that have a great business, that are succeeding. Otherwise they wouldn't be hiring more people. But those are ideal places because they don't care. They're not old and stodgy enough to have huge HR bureaucracies. Once you're like Bank of America or some like old established AT&T, you've been around for forever, you have this massive bureaucracy and this massive HR system. Often in those, you can't even get to a actual human who has the power to make a decision. It's all driven by systems. And they're like, oh, our system says degree required. We asked for a transcript and didn't get one. the system kicks you out before a human being even sees you, right? So like if it's a robot making the decisions, that kind of company, that can be harder. Now it is possible. I've seen people do it, but that's much harder. But if you're in a company where like you can just bypass, like don't even fill out the application online. Go find the email address or LinkedIn or Twitter of the CEO or the sales director or whoever you'd be working for. Message them directly. And like that person, if they have the ability to hire you and they can make that decision without a bunch of bureaucracy, those types of companies, it's amazing. Like they absolutely love it. They can't get enough.
I will never forget a couple of years ago, I was helping this director. She left her organization. She's going to another one. So I was helping her with her resume, and boy, it was beautiful. We talked about her value proposition, her ability to connect operations to corporate communications, marketing, just real value. And when she submitted her resume, she got feedback that she needed to put that she was excelling in PowerPoint and Word. And I was like, oh, are you serious? Like, here's a woman's going to bring in millions, and you don't know if she has these tactical. Oh my God. So, I was pulling my hair out. I was like, all the work we did, and just, you're right.
I mean, this is why I often say, as like half joking, but there's a lot of truth to it. Any company whose HR department is more than one person, I don't really want to work with, right? Like it turns into a monster, and it's just a bad incentive structure. Like the HR department's job is to mitigate bad, negative, risky outcomes, not to go find the best talent and hire them as fast as possible. It's kind of a legal compliance department to cover everybody's butt in the worst case event, rather than a go out and get me the best people you can, which is why the startup mentality tends to be a lot better. It's that sort of like we don't care. We're trying to build an awesome team here. We're trying to grow. So
I hear you. I feel like you and I are very aligned in this. I have discovered in my career, I've been fortunate. I've worked with some big organizations, but I have found that what I enjoy are rapid growth companies. I don't care how big they are, but they got to be fast. They like risk. And they want to grow, and they're willing to take chances. That's where I excel. And it's funny, you talk about your candidates going through Praxis. You're really helping them find their sweet spot. And I tell you, you guys are the education, the value that they're getting. People don't learn this until like they're 40 or 45. Oh my God, you're really cutting that learning experience or shortening it. So man, that's fantastic.
What's amazing is like once you have, because it's really fundamentally a mindset shift. It's like getting that aha moment through to that young person, because it's different than what they've been told their whole life. Okay, just obey the rules, get good grades, follow instructions, do the things everyone does, and then you'll sort of be handed the next opportunity. That's not how the market works. And so they come out of that kind of schooled mindset. And we joke about, we call it the deschooling process. There's like the first month or two of the program where you kind of have to be deschooled. Students will be like, okay, so how do I get the grade? How do I win? How do I get your stamp of approval, Praxis? I'm like, it doesn't work that way. We flip it around. Okay, what are your goals? What do you want? What kind of role are you interested in? What's your personality like? When are you fulfilled? What companies do you want to work for? Whatever those are, we're going to help you get to them. There's not a fill out the test and get a grade. There's none of that. It's like, okay, this is what you want. Let's put together a plan. What do we think is going to take to get there? All right, let's build a personal website and let's get 3 projects up there in the next month that demonstrate your ability, the skills that you said you have, that you enjoy and that you're good at. Empathy, attention to detail, and competitiveness. Those are all great traits that can be very useful in sales or customer success roles, which look like this. I think they could be a great fit. Let's put together, what do you want to do? How do you want to demonstrate those? Here's some ideas, right? So it's very self-driven. And like once that happens, once the flip gets switched, that's with them for life. That's with them for life. And we have participants that, again, an advantage of being at some of these early high growth companies, they come in as a sales development rep who's doing entry-level sales stuff. And by the way, sales is a great example of something where young people have no idea what it is. If you ask them, do you want to work in sales? They'll all say no, because they think of like used car salesmen.
Right.
They don't know what an SDR at a typical tech startup, what that role is even like. And many of them, turns out, love it and crush it and are really good at it. So they'll start as an SDR. They're kind of learning the ropes, working at, PandaDoc, for example. We have dozens of Praxians that have gone there. They built their whole sales team actually with people from the program. And then 2, 3, 4 years later, they're like account managers, vice president of sales. They're co-founding companies. They're hiring a bunch of kids out of Praxis themselves. Their peers are just graduating college 4.5, 5 years later. They are having 4 or 5 years experience in the market and are directors of departments who have the ability to hire, and they are rejecting their college graduate friends in favor of 18 and 19-year-olds coming through Praxis because they know the difference. And they're like, right? It's amazing to see. And it's like, I'm not talking about people that are just exceptionally out of reach in terms of brilliance and IQ or whatever, or like upbringing. These are just like normal kids that are like, what they have is work ethic and the courage to try something different. And if you have the work ethic and the courage, all the rest you can learn. This is not like rocket scientist type people, right? These are just kind of people that just have the basic, all right, I'm willing to work hard. I want to do something a little different, and I'm willing to go for it. I'm willing to learn.
I love it. So we have about 5 more minutes. I know you have a hard out. So I have a question. I thoroughly believe in following your passion, but I have seen a lot of people really play down on it. They're like, well, you got to be practical. Just do what works and, have your own passion later on. What's your opinion on this?
Yeah. So there is nothing wrong. Like, follow your passion, I think is to say that that's a bad idea just strikes me as kind of silly. Like, of course, who wouldn't want to? Of course you want to do things you're passionate about. I sometimes find that it's not helpful to young people or it's intimidating because they don't know what their passion is. Mm-hmm. And they feel bad. They're like, if you tell them follow your passion, you're like, I don't know what my passion is. And then they feel stressed by it, right? And they feel this overly large burden to like find and follow your passion. So what I've done for my own life, and then we've utilized this a lot with Praxis and other work that I've done, is to try to make it easier on myself. I reverse that. I just say, don't do stuff you hate. Okay, so let's start with, why don't you list out all the things that make you feel dead inside? Okay, like when you're doing this kind of stuff, for me, it's like paperwork, high level of attention to detail stuff, like accounting, things like that. It's not for me. I already mentioned HR, right? Like things that have a lot of process. Now, there's certain people that like processy stuff, and that is not a bad thing. For me, like, programming, coding, I find it philosophically interesting, but it's not really for me. It's a little too engineering-like. It's a little too scientific, right? And same with like marketing stuff that's like very science-based, very data-based. Like, okay, we're going to measure this. What is the open rate? Can we optimize? Like optimizing around data. It's just not for me. It doesn't do much for me. I start to feel a little dead inside. There's nothing wrong with those things, but that's just the way that I am, right? So you start making a list of like what types of things, and when you're young, it's going to be very broad and vague. You're going to be like, well, when I'm not around people for long periods of time, I feel depressed. Okay, good. Start there. That's very broad, but I'm going to list out things I hate, and I'm not going to do those. And everything else is fair game. And when you're young, say yes to as many possible things as you can. Don't do things that you hate, but say yes to everything else. And as you go, because you don't know if you hate things until you try them. So as you go, an opportunity comes up to go, whatever, intern at like shadow a lawyer for a week at a law firm. Oh, okay, I have no idea. Let me try it. If you're like most people, after that week, you will add to the list of things you hate lawyer work, right? Like, don't want to do that. And that's really funny, by the way, that so many people go through college and just like pick a major and like pick a career, even ones that have like very high path dependency, like law school, for example. When you come out of law school, the only thing you can afford to do is be a lawyer because it's the only way to pay off your debt.
Right.
Many people will do that without ever having tried the job or shadowed someone. And they find out only after the fact that they hate it. But they're stuck or they feel stuck. So anyway, so try a lot of things and keep expanding the list of things you hate. And guess what happens? Everything narrows down and you start to like hone in on getting closer and closer and closer to stuff you love, stuff you're passionate about. And it's kind of like, it's a whittling process, right? It's not an additive process. It's not like an oil painting, paint your passion. It's like, here's a big rock, chip away all the ugly parts. And what will be left will be the sculpture of what you actually like. It will be the things that are actually resonant with you. And so I've found that to be really, really effective approach to finding your passion through the process of elimination.
I totally agree. Process of elimination. And I always say, create that highway. Don't create this specific lane. Create the 12-way highway. Know where you're going, whittle through it. And then, and it takes time. And for the audience here, if you're younger, I'm telling you, it takes time. You'll be in your 30s. Maybe you might hit 40 and you're still going to be learning. But you got to be learning. That's the thing. You got to be learning.
You go through this pattern where early in your career, say yes to as much as possible. And then by the time you get late in your career, it ends up being everything is a default hell no, unless it's a hell yes, right? Like the burden of proof flips and it becomes my time is too valuable. I'm not just going to say yes unless I really know that it's exciting to me. But early on, you just don't know. You don't have enough experience. So you have to just try any opportunity you can and then whittle away. Say, okay. And as soon as you figure out you hate something, find a path to get out of that and to try the next thing.
Oh, I love it. Isaac Morehouse, where can people find you?
So you can go to isaacmorehouse.com. I've got, all the various companies I'm involved in and books and things like that. I'm also quite active on Twitter, just at Isaac Morehouse.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I'm looking at your 9 books here. I got the interview again because I'm writing my first book and I have, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. I have a hard time sitting down and doing this, but you have 9 of them, my friend. And your last one is Skip College, Launch Your Career Without Debt, Distractions, or Degree. Boy, this has been a great conversation. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, absolutely, Kevin. I'll tell you what, on the books, I kind of cheat too. Like I'll write a ton of articles over a long period and then I'll sort of collect them into books or I'll get others involved. I'll say, hey, I'm putting a book together. I'll do a chapter, you do a chapter. So there's some ways to make it easier on yourself.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, my friend. And for the audience, look up Mr. Isaac Morehouse. I tell you, his latest LinkedIn article, Why College Degrees Are Working Against Many Job Seekers. Oh boy, it's a doozy. It's great. Highly recommend it. So with that, thank you, Isaac, and I'll bid everyone farewell and talk to you next time.
Thanks, Kevin.
If you like this content and want to hear other things like it, head on over to the website at blackmarketleadership.com. That's blackmarketleadership.com. There you can subscribe to the podcast and you can even create a free members profile